in my studio, I'm the digital team. I'm the host. I'm the editor.
One man army.
Yeah, one man army, one man show. I'm Bonnie Kibuka. On my podcast, the Ugandan Boy Talk Show, I've had an honor to sit down with some of the most incredible hearts and minds from Uganda, like Miss Uganda Oliver Nakakande, Joram Ozo Job, the Executive Director of Joram Model Management, Pastor Wilson Bugembe, and many, many more. On this podcast, you get to hear raw and real life stories of their journey, what they've been through, and the people that have inspired their journey so that they can make a difference in ours. Listen to the Ugandan Boy Talk Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Join the journey soon. Sandra, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I know we had tried to do this before, but it didn't pan out.
I understand. And it's exciting because I don't even know how I reached out to you to have you on the. No, yeah, because I follow NRG Radio. So I don't get time because we're in a different time zone. You guys are 7 hours ahead of us, so I can't catch you guys live. I only watch those clips from Instagram. Those are the clips that I watch, and I follow you on Instagram, and then I follow NRG. So I jump in and watch some of the clips. I was like, it would be interesting to talk to her, have a conversation with her. But then later on, I find out you're friends with Harmony K, who has been a guest on my podcast twice. I don't know if you knew about that.
What? I didn't know that.
So I saw you hosted her on your show. How do you know Harmony?
I were in journalism school
Okay,
together. Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. Did you go to UMCAD?
Cavendish University.
Okay, Cavendish. But I also saw you went to MCI.
Yes, I went to
You
MCI
did
as well.
MCI, yeah. And that's when you met Big Boy Shaq, because Big Boy Shaq has been a guest on this podcast too.
Yes, I met Big Boy Shack at MCI.
That is
So yeah.
crazy. There was a year Ali requested me to record a video to play at the MCI training about podcasting. I'd never met Ali. I think some out of the blue he found my podcast and was like, "Oh, it would be cool to share your experience with the students at MCI." So I shared that, and he sent me the pictures on Facebook. So I saw that, and then that's how I connected with Big Boy Shaq because he also added me on Instagram, and then I had him on the podcast here to just talk about his journey. So we have two mutual friends. The
Yes, we
we
do.
know. When I saw pictures of you and Harmony, I was like, "Oh yeah, I know." And I texted her. I was like, "I'm gonna have Sandra on my podcast." She was like, "Oh really? Cool. Wow. How do you know her?" And I was like, "I just met her on Instagram, and I wanted to have a conversation with her." So I thought I would share that. On my podcast, I just host people. We talk. My main focus is just having a conversation. I like to ask people what they're passionate about talking about, but mostly I just want to talk to somebody. I want to have a conversation. That's why I don't send pre-interview questions because I want us to go back and forth, just talk and build that conversation. I think it's fun that way. So my first
Yeah.
question I'm going to
I love
ask you,
conversations.
yeah,
Yes.
did you have a New Year resolution? And I think you talked about this on the radio, but like, don't think about the answer you talked about on the radio. It's just some question I wanted to ask you. Did you have a New Year resolution, and how far are you with it? We're in October.
Um, I guess I did because I stopped. I made the decision to stop drinking alcohol in July last year, 24th. And of course, there was a lot of work that comes with that because, like I say on my show, quitting alcohol is just not about putting the bottle down.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that comes into it if you're going to stay on that track. And one of the things that towards the end of the year, because it was a learning curve, so towards the end of the year, I realized that I have to set clear boundaries with people because I realized like for a very long time, I'm the nice person. I like to help people, and most times I would stretch myself out, and it would cause me problems. Like I'd find that I'm unhappy, or I'm not meeting my full potential because people were just taking advantage of my kindness. So
Mm-hmm.
I set very clear, crystal clear boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that was my New Year's resolution going into the next year and learning this sobriety journey and everything. Boundaries is very crucial. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny when you mentioned that, like, and I want to talk about that for a little bit because I had that later on, your journey of sobriety. I didn't know what it was, but I'm glad you mentioned alcohol. There are people who drink alcohol to be happy, but like
Yes.
but there are also other people who say alcohol take away their happiness. That's like you just said. What was it for you about alcohol that you're like, you know what, this is making me do this, or this is what I don't like about alcohol that I need to stop it.
Um, at first, I started drinking alcohol to numb my pain.
Mm.
I started drinking when I was about 17 years old.
Okay.
So this was shortly after my mother passed away. My mother passed away when I was 15 years old. So I couldn't cope. And with time, I remember when I took my first drink, I didn't feel any pain.
Mm.
I felt happy, and I was just not able to feel happy after losing my mom. And that's how I began to drink. And it just continued. And 4 years later, at 19, I lost my dad.
Mm.
So it just kept on. It kept on going. It was a way of escape for me.
Mm-hmm.
And for a very long time, of course, it works for a short time. And
Mm-hmm.
being young, and you don't know how to handle alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you don't know how to handle grief or anything else at that age. It's a learning curve, and with hindsight, I can grasp the magnitude of all the emotions that were coursing through me, and I'm just in awe
Mm-hmm.
and shock as well. Like, how did I get through that?
Mm-hmm.
Because as time went by, I just started feeling worse
Yeah.
because there was this void that I could not feel. I was an angry person because I felt my parents were robbed from me. And I just felt like we never finished. Like there was just so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I really grappled with a lot of things
Yeah.
growing up as a girl without a mom. And things like cooking, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't.
Actually, it was yesterday. I was talking to somebody about my grandma. My grandma was an alcoholic, and
Mm,
somebody used hand sanitizer, and the smell of that reminded me of the alcohol my grandma used to drink, and it was strong. And I was like, did my grandma really loved the taste of alcohol? Because like when you taste of straight liquor, like the vodka, it's just there's no taste. It's just bitter. It's just
things.
strong, and even the smell of it just makes me hurt. As I asked myself a question:
Yeah.
did my grandma really enjoy that alcohol, like that taste? And my friend was like, maybe she did not. Maybe she was just drinking. Even if it tastes bad,
Yeah.
she just likes the feeling of what alcohol
The
makes her.
feeling that it gives you.
Yeah.
I think that is true to an extent. Um, and at some point when I looked at my life, I was tired of running. I was tired of running from all the pain, from all the anger. I was just, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired,
Hmm.
that's where I was at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this has to stop. Like, it has to stop. I
Hmm.
just need to track back and find out who I am, what I want, what I'm about, and
Yeah.
it's been great.
I mean, you said you were an angry person, and I'm like, somebody will never tell. Like for me, when I watch your like Instagram reels, and that's why it's good to talk to somebody because we make our own perception in our head. I'm like, she's so calm.
True.
Like even when she's talking on the radio, she's calm. She's the nicest person you've ever met. But like when somebody opens up, they'll tell you, hey. I struggled with anger. Like yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, yeah, I had anger management. Like I would just snap, even out of the blue. Somebody does something, I would just snap, and the guy was like, "Bunny, you?" Like he would never have guessed like I was like that. But that's something I struggled with, and I had to work my way out. And right now, somebody will find me and be like, "Oh, Bunny is the nicest person you've ever met," but like they don't know that side of you that you've been struggling with, and
I
like.
think I can relate. because growing up as well, I was a child with a very bad temper, very bad temper. Like I would throw stuff at people and everything when I would get mad.
Yeah.
So, in fact, somebody was telling me earlier today, it's like, you're so calm. They video called me, like, they sent me a message and they're like, you're always so calm. How do you do that? So I told him that people who have known turmoil cherish their peace because I've been
That is
there.
true. Every time when I start a podcast and the trend of those goes somewhere, even if that's the thing I had on the last order of what I'm going to talk about, I don't deny it. I just let it go. I just go with the flow. But I also wanted to revisit your moments of you went to on vacation in, was that Mombasa?
Yes,
Are you Kenyan?
Mombasa, yes, Kenya coast. No, I'm Ugandan, but I grew up in Kenya.
Okay.
I grew up in Kenya my early childhood. And yeah, I went to school there, kindergarten there. I stayed there for about, wow, I stayed there till I was like 10 years old. Then we came to Uganda. Then I went back to Nairobi as a young adult. And I lived in Nairobi by myself most of my 20s,
Wow.
actually, from when
What
I was
was,
like 22 to 28.
what was in Kenya that you really liked them? What was taking you to Kenya? Did you just want to go live there?
This time
No,
around,
no. The when you went there for school and
oh,
lived there.
no. I consider, because I grew up there, I consider Kenya my home. And for me, Kenya has the best memories of my parents. It's like kind of holding on to them. Even when I went to Mombasa, I went to the house where we grew up.
Yeah.
It's by the creek in Portrees, Mombasa. It's near the airport. When I go to Mombasa, I have to go there. I just stand outside and I look at that house.
Yeah.
And I just remember my parents, remember myself outside with my Barbie dolls playing high tea. For me, that is the most happiest moment of my life. I have recurring dreams of that house and what we used to do. So, yeah.
We have something in common. So I'm Ugandan, but my
Uh-huh.
mom is Kenyan. My
Okay.
parents met in Mombasa because my dad went to Mombasa to go to
Wow.
school, and then he met my mom. They were going to a school. It's called, I think it was called Puwani Bible Institute at the time, and it's now
Uh-huh.
changed the name. But I've been to Mombasa, not very a lot. We went there. They showed us where they went to school, where they lived, and we're just revisiting their moments. And it was so hot. But so my mom is Kenyan, and naongea Kiswahili kidogo kidogo. Sisi mi si
Karibu
Mkenya.
tujifunze.
Naongea Kiswahili yangu niyo Kiswahili ya kuomba maji, chakula na kulala.
It's good.
That's no.
It's
I
good.
hear Swahili. I can speak, but I can hear everything. If somebody talks to me in Swahili, I can respond back to English. But yeah, my mom is Kenyan, pure Kenyan, Kalenjin. That's why I have a Kenyan bracelet. I don't know if you can say it. A Kenyan bracelet in the Uganda. This is a representation of my dad and mom. That's why I wear that. Maybe a lot of people on the podcast will be wondering why I have a Kenyan bracelet.
Oh, nice.
There you get the reason. But yeah, when you visited there, I was like, and then you knew there were some songs and like you would sing. I was like, is he Kenyan? And like you seemed like you knew the
Alikiba.
yeah. I know like some of it is
You know the
Tanzania.
music that the music that I was listening to, that's like Alikiba, there's Diamond, of course.
Yeah.
But like we knew of these musicians like way back before they even became like this huge for us, like who are from Mombasa. And I remember I was dancing and people asking me, why are you twerking on social media? I'm like, that is chakacha. It's a Swahili traditional dance. We used to dance when we were young. So you like tie something on your waist and then you dance. It's actually the Swahili traditional dance called chakacha.
It's always fun to revisit your memory. There was this one of my favorite songs was like this. Hey hello ma, whatever. That's I don't even know the other words.
I think that was who was that? Some Tanzanian. But I know it. I know it. I know the song.
And then I think that was Mr. Nice, and then
Mr. Nice.
Yeah, when I saw you in Kenya, I was like, anything Kenya. I love Kenya. No offense to my people in Uganda. I am Ugandan, and that's why my podcast is the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. I'm proud to be Ugandan, but I love Kenya. I love the people in Kenya. I love my family in Kenya.
Too.
Kenya is a vibe. Like whenever I go to Kenya, it's a moment of my life. Like I love it. I love it a lot.
Oh, yes.
We mentioned about you met him in journalism school. You went MCI. Has this always
Yes.
been your passion to be in journalism, to do journalism? Was that the dream?
Yes. That was the dream. But I took a detour. Because when my parents passed on, I dropped out of school. I had not completed my A levels. So I dropped out of school, and I actually, before I dropped out, I flunked. I remember my senior four, right up, because my mom passed away the year right before I sat for my senior four. And I was always like in the top 10 and everything. But I couldn't study. And I flunked my senior four. And then I dropped out of school. And then shortly after, when I was 19 years old, I had my firstborn. So I was a teenage mom. I
Hmm.
dropped out of school, and my dream of journalism then, well, it was too far to reach
Hmm.
then. But fast forward, after working and everything in Kenya and everything, I came back. I came back sometime, I think it was like in 2013. Yes, I came back in 2013 after working all those years. And I went and found an adult school, and I went back to do my senior four.
Hmm.
Now I was about, I think, 31 then.
Wow.
So I did that. And I did my five and six in the same adult school. And then that's how I ended up going to Cavendish University to finally do my journalism degree that I had always wanted to
Mhm.
do. So yeah, that's how I got there, and that's how I met Harmony.
Maybe people who listen to my podcast think I overreact, but like when some of the things give me goosebumps, and in my head, because then my head starts spinning so fast thinking about things. How did she go through this? How did she do this? And then I think in my body, the blood just gets confused. I'm like, that's a lot to unpack. But being a single mom, like in where you were in Kenya, right?
I had him here,
Okay.
then I moved to Kenya because my closest aunt who like raised us was in Kenya, and my parents had both passed on.
Hmm.
So I took my son to Kenya, and that's how I ended up going back to work there and
Hmm.
everything, because my aunt helped me to raise him while I was working
Okay.
to look after him. So yeah,
That's tough, and I like when people share things like this because there could be a single mom who is going into that right now, and the way I look at these stories that I share in my podcast is a way of giving hope to somebody who is going through something, or if somebody knows of somebody who is going through that same thing at the moment, and a story of inspiration that when things happen at 19, your dream is not dead. I watch a lot of soccer, and there's a soccer player that said it's not over until it's over. So there's always a
absolutely.
chance. Yeah, there's always a chance. Like here you are, you got your son, and it's a blessing. No matter how it comes at, you look at it. I look at it as a blessing, and like you to be able to work, go to school, go back to school at 31 years of age. Can you imagine that? Like, I'm not even. I was
My
not even
senior four.
31 finishing college, but I felt old and I felt like I didn't want it. But like listening to that, I was like,
Mm.
people have done it, and that's.
And that's what I tell people. Like my show, The Vent on NRG Radio. I love that show. That show is very close to my heart. I always wanted a show like that, and I prayed for it. And that's exactly what God gave me. Now, why I wanted a show like this is because when I was that age, 19 to 25, from 16 years old, when
Mhm.
I lost my mom, I just had so much like to say, like how I was feeling and to tell someone, but I had no one. And the people that I would talk to would judge me, like, oh, she drinks too much, or she's just so out of hand, or they never really saw me, they
Mhm.
never really acknowledged my pain. And I want to be able to give that to other people who are feeling that way. And I went through so much. I
Yeah.
went through so much. I even had a phase where I was addicted to pills, to ecstasy, and I almost overdosed
Mm.
one night. And that's how I ended up going to Kenya, because I sat there and I thought, is this going to be my story? Is this what my son is going to be told? Your mom overdosed on pills in a bar? Is this going to be my story? And I picked him up then like 2 days later, and I took him to Kenya and went to Kenya. And but these are the things that people go through,
Right.
and other people are just judging them. Like you can't judge someone unless you've walked a mile in
Hmm.
their shoes. You don't know what they are going through, and that is why I love the energy vent. I'm very open. It's a safe space for people to share, because I want to give them hope, to tell them, you know what, I might not know exactly what you're going through, but I can imagine. And you're not having a bad life, you're just having a bad day,
Or a
you
bad
know,
moment.
and to give them a bad moment.
Yeah.
And it will pass. Sometimes you just need someone to listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need advice. Sometimes you just need support. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
that's why I'm there. That's why my show, The Energy Event, is very close to my heart.
I'm gonna jump on a bandwagon here because when I share my story, my journey, how I come into the US, how I lived in Uganda, when I share with people what I've been through, they ask me, "Have you ever thought of writing a book?" So when you were talking about all these things, I'm like, "Have you ever thought of writing a book?" Because I feel like that book when you write your life story. But I thank you for just even sharing it now, because when people ask me, "Have you ever thought of writing a book?" I was like, "I'm not a very good writer. I try to find people who can help me write my story. I couldn't, but I knew I can talk." And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start a podcast.
Yes.
I'm gonna share my story, bits and bits. Like every time I have a guest on my podcast, we talk about something, and it triggers a moment of my life that I'm gonna share, and maybe somebody listening to the podcast at that time, they're gonna listen to that. And I like that you have a radio show that where you can also share bits and bits of your life to impact another person's life. But maybe in the future, I'll write a book if I find somebody to help me write it, because I can't write it. Have you ever
You
thought about it?
should. You definitely should. Yes, absolutely. I'm a writer,
Okay.
so I write and I keep a journal, and I am actually working on a book.
Nice. Nice. I like that.
I
I
am
like to.
working on a book. I feel I should share my story to be able to help
Yeah.
and give other people hope.
Yeah. I just did a book review of the former Miss Uganda, Oliver Nakakande, The Escape.
Oh, yeah.
So my latest episode was us going through her book, and she shares her story. It's a long journey. It's a going struggling or escaping from sexual violence, and as a young girl, and how she got escaping like from shame to fame. I love that. I love memoirs. I love listening to people's stories and how they overcome it. And I do the same thing on the podcast. So you listen to somebody's story, ask them questions, but it's different when you get to read the book. So I'll be waiting for your book, because now I know bits and bits of the story. So I would love to read that in depth. But we mentioned about your show, and
Mm-hmm.
I tune in on it mostly on Instagram, and because I think Shaq shared with me the live stream, a link where I can listen to it like online, like with the
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I tuned in some time, which has all the radios. Let's talk about your journey to NRG Radio. I think Shaq name
Yes.
dropped you at some point. I remember him talking about Sandra when he came to interview and all that. So he was sharing his story to interview at NRG and somewhere, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember. But how was your journey from MCI to NRG? How did you land that show?
Well, my journey from MCI to energy. First of all, at MCI, how I joined MCI and the whole fellowship and everything is I wrote a feature story. So how you know how MCI works?
Yeah.
The best 26 students from the universities in Uganda undergo this training, 6 month training, and you get to learn different things: TV production, radio, writing, podcasting, and everything else. So when I joined, I had gotten the best award for best feature story on climate change. That was the theme that year. So when I joined the fellowship, I was interested in honing my writing skills, because I knew of myself as a writer,
Mm-hmm.
nothing else.
Yeah.
So little did I know that when you join the fellowship, you have to do all the training, like TV and
So you
radio.
can't
And I was like,
specialize.
yes, I was like, wait, what? Because they'll be calling me to the trainer. I'm like, no, 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 I'm a writer. You guys go. And they're like, Sandra, what do you mean? Come here. So the first time I sat like in front of a camera, I didn't know what to say. I
Hmm.
was stuttering and everything. I'm like, I'm the one who writes these scripts. I'm not in front of the camera. I write the scripts. That's what I do. They're
Hmm.
like, no. So, anyways, we had the radio week, and oh my goodness, I can tell you that was the most intense week of training. It was so intense. It was so new. And we stayed up late, like till 3 a.m. We were in Garuga, away for training, and we had to come up with concepts and everything. So we we were given the morning show, and you know what I told people? You know what we should talk about? We should talk about sex for a morning show. When I think about it now, I'm like, what?
Right. What time was it? Like, what time was the morning show?
It was like at 7.
7
And
a.m. Let's talk about sex. What?
so different teams they go in. So you know the first team goes in, the second one, and then we started looking at each other. We're like, okay, maybe we backfired a little bit. I'm like, you know what? Let's just go with it. So we just went with it, and it was fun, and people were listening and everything. And of course, we figured it out. No, 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 no. You
Mm,
cannot talk about that on a morning show.
yeah.
That's the late show and
Yeah.
everything. So I did it then, and I actually realized that I loved it, the banter and everything. But I didn't think much of it after that. So fast forward when there was that Sanyu hot mic search, like during COVID, there was the hot mic search.
Okay.
So my friends called me up. They're like, "No, Sandra, you should go for this and everything." And I did, honestly, I didn't want to go. They're like, "No, you should." So I went and I auditioned and everything, and I ended up on the first top 10.
Mm,
I was actually surprised. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something there.
yeah.
And then I left. I left Sanyo. I used to do feelings like for the drive show or Love at 11, and it was quite nice. It was a good experience. But then I felt that it wasn't what I was looking for because I felt that I didn't bring my personality
Right.
and my passion into it. It was like I was reading off a script. So that's why I decided to leave Sanyo, and then I went to RX Radio. At RX, I used to do the Saturday show, which was pre-recorded, and it was the 90s show.
Okay.
So I did that for a bit, and
Was it 90s
yeah,
music? Okay.
yes, it was 90s music. I enjoyed it, but I was like, again, it wasn't what I had envisioned being on radio. I always wanted a Sunday show like The Vent.
Hmm.
So I decided altogether to leave radio. So somebody told me, this is like last year, somebody told me, oh, by the way, did you hear about the new radio station opening up shop here? I'm like, no, I haven't heard. So they forwarded me to the person head of business and recruitment, NRG Radio. And to be honest, I was a bit skeptical because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, now they're just gonna give me a script and say, okay, now read this, do that, and I want to be authentic. I'm
Hmm.
all about authenticity
Hmm.
and my passion to help people, to give them hope. I'm like, if I can't be able to do that, then I
Yeah.
don't think. But something told me, you know what? Just go ahead, try it out and see. Like, it doesn't hurt to.
Hmm.
So I went and they called me and they told me, you know what, the MD is in town. So go and meet with him. And it was a couple of us. So I was the last in line and we got to have some time. And then when we sat and we talked and everything, he said, you know what I think? I think he'd be perfect for this show called Events.
Yeah.
And then he told me about it. And I was just so happy and so overwhelmed. And I'm like, that is exactly what I have always wanted.
Yeah.
And it's the show that I have always like prayed for. I'm like, just leave it to God. If it's meant to happen, it will. If it doesn't, then
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I ended up on the energy event, the
That
show that I had always
yeah,
wanted.
that is crazy, and it's great how things work. And some of the things that I picked out when you're talking is about passion, and I remind people all the time. Anytime you do something that's a passion, it gives you the energy. It gives you the effort to keep doing it. And when you do something you love, and people ask me a lot, how are you able to stay consistent with your podcast? How are you able to get these guests? Like, I do it because I love it. Like that right there motivates me to keep doing it. If I didn't love it, I would have done 2 episodes. I'm done. But anytime you do something with a passion, and that's something you kept talking about when you were looking for something you're passionate about, something you can connect to, it adds up. It adds up to what you want to do. When you met with the MG, part of the things they
Mm.
asked you, were you just telling him about your story? Because I could see how you sharing your story with him, your journey, could fit in perfect to vent, because the things you can share in that show, it's what people are going through, and you can connect with that. Was that something you shared with him?
Yes, I told him about myself. I remember he was struck. He looked at me and he's like, "How old are you?"
That's, I didn't want to say that, but I was good.
I'm like, "I'm 40." He's like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Like, okay. And I shared my story and my passion and what I would love to do on radio,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel that if you channel your passion and you listen to it, because most of people are always like, oh, I'm chasing this, I'm chasing my dreams, I don't chase my dreams, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're chasing your dreams, it implies that they are running away from you. I prefer to become and radiate and attract, and that's how the vent came to me.
Yeah.
I put it out there and the universe brought it to me because we aligned. The
Mm-hmm.
show and how it's supposed to be was in alignment with what my passion is, and through that I can be able to fulfill my purpose, because I feel, I know that social justice is my calling
Mm-hmm.
as a journalist. That is my niche, social justice.
Yeah.
It might sound corny or anything to give a voice to the voiceless, but there are some people who don't have that platform to
Mm-hmm.
speak, or they're afraid to speak, or
Yeah.
they don't know
Yeah.
how to articulate what they want to say. And that's where I come in. I
Mm-hmm.
remember even as a child, a girl growing up, I've always been very outspoken. And if I saw something happening to someone at school,
Mm-hmm.
they know that cop is going to tell you that one there with the blue shirt with the dot on the collar,
Yeah.
that one. I would always speak up because it's not fair,
Yeah.
and I feel that we align and everything. And because my show is on Sundays,
Mm-hmm.
and energy radio on Sundays is different. There's energy, yes,
Yeah.
but it's a different kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quiet, and my producer is always upstairs waiting for me, and the digital team and the security guy. We always have some banter when I
Yeah.
come out of the lift. But there's like so much going on. I'm getting ready, and I'm thinking of the guests and this and that, and of course I've prepared and everything. But when I get to the studio, I just take a deep breath when I'm at the car park, and when I go up that elevator, I always say a prayer, like, God, to use this gift
Mm-hmm.
that He gave me for something which is greater than myself,
Yeah.
because it's not about me. It's about the service that I
Mm-hmm.
bring. It's not about self. It's about service. And the show is not my show. It is for the people who listen to the show,
Exactly.
because it's a service I'm giving them. So I always say that prayer going the flows up, and when the lift opens,
Mm-hmm.
it's crunch time.
It's showtime. You've been nominated for an award. Well, yeah. So, like, I wanted to bring that up after we walk through your journey and to see where you've come from and to this point being nominated an award. How did that news get to you, and how did it make you feel?
I got a message on Instagram. Honestly, I thought they had sent it to the wrong Sandra. Honestly, I was like, what? So what I did, I immediately forwarded it to Harmony, and I forwarded it to the Energy group, And that was it. I didn't tell nobody.
Yeah.
So later on, what Harmony, I called Harmony and we started talking about other things and we talked and talked and talked. And then midway, she's like, "Oh, girl, congratulations." I'm like, What happened?" She's like, "What do you mean, what happened? Didn't you send me the link?" I'm like, "Oh, about that." And she's like, "You don't sound enthusiastic." And I'm like, "No, it's just that it's so surreal. I think I'm in shock."
Hmm.
So it's still sinking in because, and I say this on my show, like I'm very humbled because there's so much talent. Even just at NRG Radio itself, there is just amazing talent there. Everybody is so different,
Hmm.
but our uniqueness and diversity is what makes it so beautiful.
Yeah.
With that being said, it's not like I'm belittling my achievement or my service because I do understand what I'm about and what I'm doing. And for me, that depicts that people are listening and it means that I'm making a difference.
Hmm.
And that is the highlight for me.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, what I set out to do is actually helping people
Hmm.
because if they can realize that, and put me in this category, then it means that the service I'm giving is working, it's helping people. So I'm actually so humbled.
That is amazing, and I can relate. And the reason why that stood out to me is when I saw the news. My podcast was nominated in an award in Uganda, the Pulse Uganda Awards, not
Yes,
the second time because we won the award the first time, and the first time I didn't even know I got nominated. I was just here doing my thing, bringing people's stories. I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I didn't start my podcast. I was like, I want to start a podcast that's gonna win awards and gonna do this. I was just doing my thing out of the room. And one day, and this was the first time, my friend texted me on WhatsApp, "Hey, did you know your podcast was nominated and people are actually voting?" I'm like, "I've not had anything. I don't know anything." He sent me a screenshot. It's like, "Your podcast was nominated in an award in Uganda." I was like, "Really?" And I can understand what you just say, that knowing that your work is getting noticed. Sometimes people who do content, sometimes people who do work on the internet, we get judged a lot, but likes, views, or you don't have these, you don't have the best equipment. This is something I shared in another episode where Babaluku was going, explaining it's not about the equipment, it's not about the likes, it's not about the views, it's about
absolutely.
it's about the spirit. And I'll paraphrase his words. He was like, it's about the spirit in which you host and the dedication you put, your time you put in listening to people's stories and wanting to pull the stories out there. That's what that matters. And when you do that, that's why people come in for you even without you being there, and they will vote for you because they know what they like. Don't let anything, numbers, distract you. And that's why I put this message out there for other people who are content creating, people who are building stuff. Like, don't let those internet numbers kill your dream. Just don't look at it. Just keep
That's
doing it.
true.
Keep grinding, keep doing it. And little did we know, the second time we got nominated, this is the one, and we just won it on the 7th,
Yes,
which was
congratulations. I
amazing.
saw that.
So, yeah, it's amazing. So I can relate when you say that, and I'm here to support in any way we can support. If on your nominations, if we have to vote, just let us know, and I'll pass
Yes,
the message out to my audience and everybody. And my podcast is we rise by lifting each other up. That's what I like, and I've
thank
said
you.
that from day one because when somebody's willing to come on my podcast to share their story, they're dedicating their time. Like, you could be doing something for yourself right now, but you're dedicating that time to sit here with me and have this conversation, for then my audience to also listen to that. That's priceless. That's you can't put a price on that. You can't put a price on somebody's time. So I appreciate that, and I would love to extend that, like, pay it forward. When you do it to me, I do it for another person, and I want my audience also to do it for another person. Maybe we could help save the
Thank
world.
you.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved talking to you, and I know I had something else down here about social justice, but you touched on it a little bit. So yeah, and you mentioned, I want to talk about NRG Radio. That radio, I mean, I'm not being biased. I know quite a few people who work on the radio. It's amazing. You guys just came in out of the blue and just brought all the energy with the name.
Disrupted.
Yeah, you disrupted the city. The name choice was just a name. Nobody like it just defeats the energy. Like that's amazing. And you guys, I just watched you some friends because it's in Kenya too. So some guys from Kenya came in Uganda, and they were all over the
Yes,
city. It was just going crazy.
3-man army. They always bring it from the breakfast show
Yeah, it
in
was
Kenya.
it was great. It was great. I
Mhm.
loved it, and I love NRG. And once in a while, I'll tune in and I'll listen, and I love it. One question that popped up: you said your last name Sandra Cop, and you said you're from Uganda. So if you're from Uganda, you don't have Nachirija Nani. What's
No, I only have English names.
really
My dad was, yeah, British, Japanese, and my mom Toro, and
okay?
also some British blood there.
Oh, oh,
So no, but my empako is a wall.
Aboli, okay. That explains it. I was here. You were confusing me, and because if you had told me you're Kenyan, I was gonna guess you were Chikuyu.
Kikuyu. I
Yeah.
always get Mtaita. People think I'm
Mtaita?
a Mtaita.
Because I have
Yes, I'm
cousins
from
who are
a
like,
Mtaita.
my cousins are like light skinned and they're like Kikuyus. So that's what I was gonna guess, but yeah, I was wrong.
Taita. On passport Taita.
Yeah. My mom is a Kalenjin, so I'm Kalenjin. I don't have a middle
Oh,
name too.
nice.
I have two names, Bani, Chibuka. I had a middle name that I stopped using because I didn't like it. And my friends made fun. Also, when I was in like P3, my friends made fun of that name. And I was
Uh-huh.
I was even almost quitting school because of how kids were bullying me
Oh,
because of the
it was
name.
hard to take to the playground.
Yeah. So like you know how they short forms your name and they make like if your name sounds like something abusive, they will short form to that
I'm so
thing.
sorry. Why am I
So so every time they'll call me that, I was like, can you stop? And like P3, you can't stop anybody. I go home, I tell my parents, I really don't like that name. They're like, Bunny, too bad, that's your name. I was like, oh,
What?
okay. I was like, I don't like that name. My dad was like, that's a good name. It's for your grandparents and you have to
Oh
keep
my
it.
gosh.
So
I
I was
don't know why
like,
parents do that.
okay. You know how we get to primary seven and you have to register names for your name?
Oh
I was like,
yes.
yeah, I got you. So
You dropped it
I didn't
there.
write that
Smart
name.
kids.
I didn't write that name, and that's how it got off my document. I never had it, so I just learned it with that. And if my parents wanted to
That
have
was
that
a
name, they were
smart
gonna
move.
pay a lot of money to change my documents, and they didn't feel like they wanted to do that, so they didn't do it. But yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you about your last name. It's unique. I've never had it.
Thank you. It's an English name,
Okay,
British name.
nice. So throughout the conversation we've had, you've been through a lot. There could be a young teenage girl listening, not even a teenage girl, an adult, anybody, any person, whatever they're going through. What message would you share with them from your life? Like, what can you say to them? Anybody out there listening to your story today?
I would like to I'd like to tell them that if I had known Christ earlier in my life, there are just so many things that I would have understood at that age. I got to realize and to discover Christ much later in life. So, a relationship with God, no matter what religion you
Mm-hmm.
are, you might not be Christian, but a relationship with God is very crucial
Yeah.
because it makes you, it gives you wisdom. You
Mm-hmm.
get to understand. You know how people say things happen for a reason, but nobody ever tells us the reason.
Right.
The reason is there if you look harder. With
Mm-hmm.
hindsight now, I understand why I went through all that I went through because God was preparing me
Mm-hmm.
to be a beacon of hope to others. And that's why I had to go through it.
Yeah.
That is how my life was supposed to play out.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not angry anymore because I understand. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at Joseph in the Bible, He was sold by his brothers. But you see, God is a God of legacy because he is the one that saved his family from famine.
Mm-hmm.
But God could see this. And that's why he had to be sold as a slave. And he ended up in Potiphar's house, and then he ended up in prison, and then, but that's how his life was supposed to play out.
Right.
So that at that moment that God had planned, he would actually save his family. If that had not occurred,
Mm-hmm.
he would not be the right hand man in Egypt
Right.
to be able to help. So you see, now I understand that
Even Moses, like when they
even
threw him in
Moses,
the basket. Yeah.
yes, even Moses, he had to go because he is a God of legacy. You
Mm-hmm.
can see something happening now, but it's because you don't have vision. You're so bitter. So if you can open up your mind
Mm-hmm.
and just embrace, because God will always provide, no matter what you're going through.
Right.
He'll always provide, and through hard times, adversity builds character. It sharpens you.
That is true.
So a relationship with God is very important, and things will always happen in life,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to take heart and never lose hope.
Yeah.
Never lose hope, because you can lose everything else, but once you lose hope, you lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened to me just 3 years ago in 2020. I lost all hope right before I I decided to quit alcohol like 2 years before. In 2020, I tried to commit suicide. I was like, it was it for me. I was done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, I don't want to live anymore. And I just used to sit and think about what ways I could go out, like different scenarios. And I would Google that stuff. So it was like premeditated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I know that once you lose hope, that's it. Like,
It's over.
so never lose hope. Like, there's always something on the other side. All you have to do is have faith and and keep on going, because God has got you
Mm-hmm.
always.
That is true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've shared this, but one of my favorite verses in the Bible is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways, acknowledge Him and He'll make your path straight. And that's what I could just think about, because our understanding will give us all the wrong information. Like, you're poor, you're broke, you're ugly, you're everything. But like
Yes.
that, when the Bible tells you trust in the Lord, like just think about what God thinks about you, not what you think about yourself or like in that moment, and He will make your path straight. And just from your story to see how God has been helping you to walk you this journey, and I'm glad you shared that. And if somebody out there is listening, maybe that you can forget everything we talked about earlier and just pick out this at the end. And that's why towards the end I like to pick out that. And before I let you go, I have 3 questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
What has been a life lesson you've learned in life to this point?
I have learned to always choose myself, because people will always come into your life with different agendas. And I always used to live life thinking, if I'm kind to people, they'll be kind to me. And I learned the hard way that people are just messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are just messed up. They're just there to take and take and take. So choose yourself. Choose yourself. Always have your boundaries up and choose yourself.
That is true. And if you
If
don't
it
choose
steals
this,
your peace, it's not worth it.
yeah,
Choose yourself.
right. That is true. And I said that a few weeks ago. Like sometimes we choose money over ourselves. We think about situations where, oh, if I say something, I'm gonna lose my job, and then I won't have money, and then it takes your peace, takes your freedom, takes everything, and in the long run, that is gonna be costlier than the money you're fighting for at that moment. And again,
Absolutely.
I'll emphasize that choose yourself, and it's gotta be you. You don't expect anybody else to come out there and do it for you, even if it's your parent, even if it's your dad, even if it's your husband. It's gonna start with you, and those people will just add on to what you already have. So don't look at it from
Exactly.
somebody else. What gets you excited about life?
What gets me excited about life? Helping people.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that gives me more joy than helping people.
Mm.
It's so fulfilling.
Yeah.
It never gets old to know
That's true.
that I've left someone better than I found them. Maybe it's a kind word, maybe it's a gesture, maybe it's help in whatever form or way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, there's nothing more fulfilling for me than that. And
Yeah.
when people approach me and they tell me, "Oh, Sandra, I had this, or you did this, or what you told me the other time really encouraged me," and this and that, it's just, I can't explain the feeling. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I like the line you said, leaving them better than you found them. That's it for me. That's my goal too. I like that. The other one is a signature question of the podcast, and this is the final question. Who would you like to see on this podcast next as a guest? And you're gonna help me connect me to that person if I can't find them, or you help me regardless. You help me connect me to that person so they can be my next guest on the podcast.
I think we should get Zion. Have you had Zion on the
Mm-mm.
podcast?
No.
She does the Energy Circle.
Okay.
She's the head presenter at NRG Radio. I call her Queen of the Mic. She
Queen
is
of the
the
mic.
Queen of the Mic.
Nice. I would love to talk to her. Have a
She's a
conversation with her.
natural. She's just so well rounded. She's an actress. She's an
Yeah,
amazing radio presenter. Yeah, I think you should have her on.
that'll be
I
amazing.
think so, and I'll tell
Yeah, okay.
her.
Connect me. I'll reach out to her and send my invite and have her on the podcast. Um, Also, I'm planning a trip to Uganda in January, so I'm gonna. You should host me on your show. I should come.
Yes, absolutely. You read my lips. Definitely on
So,
my show. I would love to have you.
all right, I'll send you my
Okay.
travel dates once I confirm them, and then we can schedule that. That'll be amazing.
Cool. I look forward.
All right. Once again, Sandra, I appreciate your time, your words, and accepting to do this. I'm hopeful that one or two of my listeners or anybody out there will pick out something from your story and your journey. Thanks for being willing to share your story in my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Let's stay connected, and I'll keep you informed about my travel dates.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty.
All right. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye. Hey there, this is Bani Kibuka, the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching and listening to my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with a friend and recommend somebody to this podcast. Don't forget to leave a feedback on this podcast because that's how we grow. And also don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. Join us on our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So we would love to hear from you. Thank you very much and be blessed.